Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Christopher Nolan's new biopic, Oppenheimer. And I was very excited for this film. It was one of my most anticipated films of this year, written and directed by Nolan, telling the story of Robert Oppenheimer, the man who created the atomic bomb, and led the Manhattan Project during World War II, and created a new dawn, a new world, where one bomb can be shot off and lead to a chain reaction that could destroy everything. And there's a power in that story and consequences to Oppenheimer's actions. And this film is all about capturing that. The final moments of this film, I was tearing up from the sheer weight and the gravity of the themes of this film coming together in its final moments after this 3-hour epic biopic. And I think Christopher Nolan found that and found that power and fear of what Oppenheimer truly accomplished and delivered that so perfectly in this film. This film is structured in a way similar to, say, The Social Network, where we're having this deposition where Oppenheimer is like kind of being put on trial to get his security clearance revoked post World War II, and you also have this confirmation committee hearing for Louis Strauss, who played by Robert Downey Jr., who is a man who was very closely connected to Oppenheimer post-World War II, and a man who's really pushing for the hydrogen bomb program, where Oppenheimer was opposed in post-World War II. You have this structure that keeps things very interesting and engaging and balancing between black and white and color filmmaking. I did watch this on one of the 1970 millimeter IMAX screens, saw it at the Lincoln Square AMC in New York City. And Hoyt van Hoytema's cinematography pops incredibly. This is a striking film from a visual standpoint. Ludwig Göransson creates such an atmospheric score that I know people complain about the sound mixing and stuff like that and the aggressiveness of Nolan's scores, but there's a power and a weight to the music that adds so much emotional depth to this story. And this film is told in an interesting way. One of the only things that I'm wrestling with in my own head in terms of gripes with the film is, it's like The Social Network, but Nolan's not Sorkin. Some of the dialogue does feel very biopic, exposition-heavy dumping. But the thing is, I felt engaged throughout the whole entire film. I was glued to wanting to hear what any given character had to say next. And I feel like that goes a long way in making the pace to this 3-hour film feel like nothing. The music, the editing, just the sheer power that of Nolan and what he brings to this, the intercutting with these prophetic looks of explosions and the strings that make up everything and the atoms colliding and black holes in the sky, and all of those things create such an anxiety because we're inside the head of Oppenheimer, and we what Cillian Murphy does in this role is so reflective, and we see every bit of emotion seeping through his performance. He embodies this character so perfectly and at different points in his life. And this is going to be a role that I think Murphy's definitely going to be nominated for Best Actor and has a really strong chance of winning. He is so powerful in this film, and this man, we see so many complexities and contradictions. He is not an easy man to know. And we know that through the multiple people in his life that don't. You have Emily Blunt playing his wife, who's a tortured soul, but also a powerful woman. And when she's pushed, there's a particular scene at this deposition where Jason Clarke's character, who's a piece of crap, is really hardballing her, and she won't let go and keeps coming at him, and there's power there, and it's such an impressive performance. There's legitimately twists in this film, which is fascinating because I did not expect that, in the way that what happened to Oppenheimer is such a big question mark throughout this film, and how Nolan builds up to that reveal in the third act is extremely impactful. The tension building up to us finally seeing the weapons test. That sequence is one of the tensest, most suspenseful things that you're ever going to see. And the use of miniature explosions and everything to bring that to life is fascinating and impactful. And that sequence, it's like you're sitting in awe of what Nolan was able to bring to life on screen. You have the rest of, like, Matt Damon as, like, the main general here. I really liked him. He added a bit of humor. He added a bit of a different kind of feel compared to all of the scientists and intellectuals that surrounded Oppenheimer. Robert Downey Jr. gives what might be his best performance of his career as Strauss, and I think he deserves an Oscar nomination for this character who is the foil to Oppenheimer and is needed in this story to really bring that up. And you have so many, like, you have Alden Ehrenreich, Jason Clarke, Tony Goldwyn, James Darcy, Kenneth Branagh, so many people. David Krumholtz, who's a really close friend of Oppenheimer in this film, I think gives such a great supporting performance. And good for Josh Hartnett, who has a really substantial role too, who really stands out. You have Alex Wolff and Florence Pugh, whose role in this film I feel like has been so focused on because of the use of them saying there's nudity in this. She's such an alluring and complicated woman that really captures the complexities and contradictions of who Oppenheimer is as a person, and her role in this, and that the nudity is used to such impactful means that it's kind of unnerving and striking in the way that it's portrayed. There's so many other fantastic performers throughout this film. Like Benny Safdie, I think, is a real good standout. There's one particular actor who shows up as President Truman that's unexpected, but still extremely impactful. I think this film captures the complexities of who Oppenheimer was, with never showing him as just a simple, straightforward person. And he had his flaws, and it does not shy away from his infidelities, his affairs, his womanizing, his total disregard for the rules in terms of, like, the expectations for him at his university. And, of course, when it really comes down to it, this is an absolutely striking and mesmerizing film. This is one of the most unique biopic experiences I've ever experienced. This is one of Nolan's best films. This is something that is a towering work of art that will leave you shaken in so many ways. And I felt devastated by the end of it. There's sequences in this film, especially during a speech, that are so horrific that you feel like they should have been in a horror film. Nolan knows that this is something that changed everything. And this film feels that weight and captures it in such an impressive way. I love this film. This film is something that I feel like should be watched. It feels so relevant in a world where artificial intelligence is growing to the lengths that it is, because this is human hubris on display, and this film puts the finger on that pulse in such an impactful way. But those are my thoughts on Oppenheimer. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.